Mediation is an important and sustainable way of resolving conflicts. Africa has a long tradition of negotiating conflicts in different levels, from decision makers to tribal and community leaders. A successful mediation process produces a satisfying solution to all conflict parties. In Africa, it means understanding the local context, such as history, culture, and values. But is there a specific African way of mediating? If yes, what is that way? CMI presents these questions to African mediation experts in the field.
Yes, there is. Because the people, by their own traditions and practices, have always had a way of solving problems. Sometimes it's the head of a clan. Sometimes it's a tribal chief whom all the citizens respect. And therefore, they go to him when there is a problem for him to solve it. Sometimes they invite a next-door neighbor, if it's even between families, or the next village chief whom they all trust. And because chieftaincy in Africa occupies a very important position in society.
You see, we believe, yes, there is an African way of mediation because we have our culture, African culture, we have our values. Of course, we respect universal principles on democracy, good governance, but we have our specific values, like the Asians and the Americans and the Europeans have their own and specific values. So we believe that whatever problem erupts in Africa, it should find an African solution because it's an African problem.
But I think it has to do more with culture, with the knowledge of the geography, of the culture, of the ethnicity, of the dynamics, of the aspirations of the people of Africa, of the language, including the body language, because I mean there is I remember that when we were engaged in discussions in Burundi, the Burundi people will tell you there is what we tell you, but there is also what we will not tell you. You have to understand what is said, what is not said. That has to do more with culture.
I think definitely, I agree that there is an African way, like there is a European way, like there is an Asian way. Even within Africa, the values vary from country to country. And I believe in Somalia, there is a Somali way. There are Somali values. We cannot negotiate or mediate in a vacuum. We need to take those values into consideration. If we go beyond or against those values, we certainly cannot convince the parties.
Vous savez, madame, chaque société a sa culture. Et avec la mondialisation, nous sommes maintenant dans un monde où on a l'impression qu'on va dans une situation où il y a une seule culture. Mais les Africains, dans leur culture, ont la possibilité, faisaient même de la médiation. Et je vais prendre tout simplement ce que nous appelons les discussions sous l'arbre à palabres. Vous preniez un village, un problème surgissait, le chef du village réunit les parties en conflit et le débat se fait sous la forme d'une palabre et on tire les conclusions. Celui qui a tort va être sanctionné et c'est comme ça que la société est organisée. Donc l'Afrique a sa propre culture de la médiation. Et d'ailleurs, il ne peut en être autrement. Sinon, avec le nombre de conflits qu'il y a sur ce continent, si l'Afrique devait attendre que d'autres personnes viennent d'ailleurs pour les résoudre, je pense que la situation serait très, très grave.
Je ne sais pas. Il faut dire aussi que l'Afrique, c'est grand, c'est très grand. Je vais vous donner un petit exemple moi, je suis burundais de nationalité. Chez nous, nous avons une classe de sages qu'on appelle Bashinganaï dans la langue du pays. Et ces gens-là, ils ont une manière de procéder qui, à mon avis, gagnerait à être connue. Lorsque vous avez des partis qui viennent présenter leur cas, ces sages répètent dans d'autres mots ce que les parties ont dit, dans le sens de faire comprendre aux parties en conflit qu'il y a du bien dans ce que l'autre a dit et qu'on n'a peut-être pas entendu. Donc c'est pour vous dire qu'on peut emprunter au Burundi, en Guinée ou ailleurs une certaine sagesse qui peut servir dans la médiation internationale.
So is there an African way?
I don't believe so. I believe that what people mean when they say an African solution is the comprehension, the understanding of the problem that you bring to bear on the process. You can have a non-African who understands the dynamics of the problem, the sensitivities, because what people complain about most of the time is people who come into a process without understanding the dynamics of that problem. I don't believe that there's something called the African mediator. But as a mediator mediating in African conflict, you must be sensitive to the problem, to the nature of the problem, to the people, and sometimes, you know, a lot of problems have gone into this conflict that, you know, people have gone to the extremes. What you need to do is to be able to bring them out of the corners. They have boxed themselves into corners. So what people mean, in my understanding, is that you should be able to help the parties to come out of the corners they have boxed themselves.
If you're looking for a common African way of doing mediation, you will not find it, because each situation is particular, peculiar. But definitely there are principles, practices, ways of doing things at the African Union which can be systematized in such a way that could be useful to African mediators.
So do you think that even non-Africans could learn those to be better mediators on the African continent?
Oh, surely. Surely they could perhaps understand better how Africa has been handling its mediation situation over the times and what results it yielded, and then take advantage of those practices and see where they have paid attention to, what was the most critical situation, whether there are some similarities and how they were handled, and that can, of course, we can share these things with the others.
So I think rather we need to be saying there is a professionally effective way of dealing with mediation and then an amateurish way of dealing with mediation. If we pursue a professional approach to mediation, that is not to say that we don't take cognizance of African values. In South Africa, for example, we prize the value of Ubuntu, which is a spirit of brother and sisterhood, that we treat people as human beings and we treat them as equal. And if that is an African spirit and ethos that guides our approach to mediation, that would be a good thing.
There are definitely universal rules that apply everywhere in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. At the same time, we need to take into account the local, national, continental realities. And in whatever we do, we have to bear that in mind. But I would redefine the problem differently. I would say what really matters here is ownership at local, national, and continental level. I do not believe in solutions that are imposed from outside. I believe in solutions that are generated from within and that are owned by the people concerned. Hence, the need for Africa's leadership in searching for solutions for African problems.
Simplement, la base et les principes culturels varient d'un continent à un autre, d'une culture à une autre. Et sous cet angle-là, il est certain que si vous prenez un médiateur africain, vous lui demandez d'intervenir dans un conflit au niveau des Balkans ou en Extrême-Orient, il y a peut-être des éléments qui lui manquent. Ne serait-ce que parce que s'il se permet de croiser les jambes devant une partie où croiser les jambes sur le plan culturel est un affront, il est bien mal parti. Inversement, si vous prenez quelqu'un qui n'est pas africain et qui ignore les paradigmes culturels de l'Afrique et vous lui demandez d'être médiateur, il y a des risques d'échec. Cela ne veut pas dire qu'un non-africain ne peut pas être médiateur en Afrique. Il faut qu'il tienne simplement compte des valeurs culturelles africaines. Parce que dans la médiation, comme dans toute expression, il y a des dits et il y a des non-dits. Et on ne peut saisir les non-dits que si on est profondément imprégné de la culture de celui qui s'exprime, pour pouvoir retenir de ce qu'il dit les non-dits et les dits.